they're off. 3 miles ahead of them in the Grade 2 Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, and Conman John has jumped off in front, and they already arrive at the first. Casino de Mott in the black and maroon hopped over in second place, just ahead of Big Cadillac, the maroon and white, and Reckless Spending, the yellow and blue for Nico de Boinville down on the inner. Carlenrig and Harry Skelton in the light blue next, and then Into Something Good, the yellow cap for Sam Twiston Davis, and Sean Bowen in the maroon and white on They Call Me Hugo at the back of a very well grouped field through the first quarter of a mile. Conman John again leading them out over the second flight to Casino de Mott, Reckless Spending, Big Cadillac and Carlenrig third, fourth and fifth respectively, and then Into Something Good and They Call Me Hugo as they take the third. So about to go on a steady incline now towards the fourth flight at the top of the hill, and it's Conman John leading a well-grouped field of 7 to Casino de Mott, Reckless Spending close up on the inner, Big Cadillac in the maroon and white in fourth, Carlenrig wide of Into Something Good, and They Call Me Hugo looks on. Very accurate lead from the leader, matched in truth by the other half dozen. And now a slightly longer run between hurdles, as the drone shots will show us that there's about 5 lengths from first to last. Conman John with a small advantage beginning the descent over Casino de Mott under Brendan Powell. And then Reckless Spending with Big Cadillac in fourth, Into Something Good on the inner of Carlenrig, and They Call Me Hugo 2 lengths further back, making the run towards the fifth. And they've gone through the first mile of the race now, and Conman John and Derek Fox have set pretty even gallop so far in this 3 miler. Hopping over neatly once again there from Casino de Mott and Reckless Spending. Big Cadillac and Carlenrig in the light blue. Then Into Something Good and They Call Me Hugo. Into the straight for the first time and on to the sixth, steadily approaching halfway in the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. Conman John over Casino de Mott with very little change in the order since the moment they jumped off. They've allowed Conman John to set the pace, which has just slackened a little up the straight. First time, just knocked a couple of miles an hour off the tempo. Derek Fox on Conman John. Casino de Mott on the left, almost up sides. They land just ahead of Big Cadillac in the centre of a line of 3 with Reckless Spending on the inner and Carlenrig wide. And then Into Something Good and They Call Me Hugo under a quiet ride from the double chasing champion jockey Sean Bowen. They meet rising ground now at effectively the end of a circuit, so the halfway point of this Grade 2 contest, and Conman John continues to lead Casino de Mott. Carlenrig circling them as they crest the rise. Reckless Spending back on the inner of Big Cadillac in the maroon and white, and then Into Something Good and They Call Me Hugo, and they're drawing downhill now to the 7th. Conman John, very slick there, just half-length in Casino de Mott. Reckless Spending, Carlenrig, and Big Cadillac right on the leaders' tails on the approach to the second of the line of 3 taken, racing away out into the country. Conman John and Casino de Mott at the 8th. Over Carlenrig, who took that well. Less so, both Big Cadillac and Reckless Spending. Into Something Good and They Call Me Hugo remain the final 2, but well in touch. And Conman John again was very good. Still has a very small lead over Casino de Mott. Carlenrig 3rd, stablemate Big Cadillac in 4th. Reckless Spending once again has the inside running rail into the bend. And then Into Something Good, the yellow cap, last but one. And lastly, They Call Me Hugo. Into the last mile now, they're heading towards the 3rd last. Conman John and Casino de Mott, almost inseparable, each hurdling slickly. Reckless Spending, another slight error in 5th place, just behind Carlenrig and Big Cadillac. But in truth, the cards not so much not been played, they've barely been put on the table, really. They've all just sauntered along in a tight group, and just under 30 miles an hour, they now begin the downhill run on the lengthy gallop to the 2nd last. So Conman John in the red, working across to Casino de Mott and Carlenrig and Harry Skelton widest of all. Reckless Spending down on the inner neck, Oderbойn for the blue and yellow. Big Cadillac, Kieran Gething's just beginning to change his hands a little to keep him interested. As They Call Me Hugo, the hoop cap for Sean Bowen begins to make progress, and Into Something Good beginning to thread through the field. Yellow cap, here's the second last. Conman John, Casino de Mott and Carlenrig. There were almost three in a line. Into Something Good and They Call Me Hugo right in behind with Big Cadillac against the rail, and Reckless Spending has become outpaced. They're beginning to pour it on. It's 35 miles an hour now on the crown of the bend and increasing. Conman John, Casino de Mott stares him in the eye. Carlenrig at their quarter. Then They Call Me Hugo. Into Something Good in behind the yellow cap. Fairly sprinting on down towards the last. Quarter mile to gallop. Conman John on the left. Carlenrig. Casino de Mott in the black. Extreme left. They Call Me Hugo. Final flight. Conman John joined by Carlenrig. They set off up the running together from Casino de Mott. Into Something Good. Yellow cap staying on powerfully. Conman John. They Call Me Hugo. Into Something Good and Carlenrig are all bearing down on him. Conman John is all out. Carlenrig is coming with They Call Me Hugo. Three in the line. Oh, sort that out, Judge. They Call Me Hugo in the centre. Carlenrig on the near side. Conman John. And the judge is going to be busy.
Carlenrig has just won this Grade 2 Novice Hurdle. He's just going to precede us as well back to the stables for the Skeltons. Harry, he's a lovely, big, chasing type, but he's just won a Grade 2 Novice Hurdle on his second start.
Yeah, a great placing by Dan. The race does stand out in the calendar a bit, obviously, for those sort of 3 milers, but we were keen to get him one run into him before we came here, and he ran well at Chepstow and he's built on that. So, like you say, he's a chaser in the making, but it was a good performance. He was a bit babyish in the, once he sort of hit the front. He's never sort of done that before and been in that sort of heat of the race before. Obviously, the 3 miles suited him well. Once he came over to that rail, that helped him. He changed legs and then off he went up the rail. I felt that he won well in the end.
You essentially let him drift there to get the help, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I was mindful that he was going that way, and I thought I'm better off letting him get there sooner rather than later. Because if I would have restricted him from running straight, I think I'd have hindered him and stopped his momentum running forward. And obviously there wasn't another horse there, so once he got on the rail, he was away. And
were you confident at the line that his nose was in front?
I wasn't sure. When Sean Bowen's mowing you down, you're never quite so sure. And the cameraman went straight to him. I thought, yes, they're normally always right, as the cameramen are. And then it flicked back to me, and I thought, oh, maybe. I did feel that nearer the line, I was coming back again. Like I was. Once the other horses got to him, he saw them, and then he picked up again. So, yeah, look, we're in front where it mattered, and I think the form will stand up. I think Conman John, the second horse, Ollie Murphy's horse, won quite well at first. I think the form will hopefully stand up all right.
And can he keep at the top level as a novice hurdler, do you think?
Well, that was a good performance. Only a second start. I think he'll improve. I'd say Dan won't run him back too quickly now. He'll just mind him a little bit. And the Albert Bartlett's always a tough race for a young horse. It is. But I think probably the horse's mind, will cope with it all very well. And yeah, I don't see why we probably just don't try and come back here in March. And why not? Yeah.
Reflections on Hoge early smoke. Did the race just not really pan out for him?
No, they went quite slow, and I found myself travelling a bit too well and a bit too close to the pace. We'll probably come back to flat track. He doesn't just quite see it out up that hill, but he's knocking at the door, and normally when you knock at the door it opens at some point. So hopefully, I think we've got a race in mind, probably end of February around Kempton, over 3 miles, worth quite a few quid. So
I think we recognise the one you're talking about.
We'll have a go at that. I think he's going to land on one of them in a minute, and if not, we'll come back down in grade. But why not? Keep banging the door.
Absolutely. Thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Cheers, well done. Well, we've heard from Harry Skelton about Carlenrig. Let's hear from his trainer, Dan Skelton. Congratulations. First off, did you think he'd got there on the line?
No. I thought he was second, and then when Ollie's horse joined in, I thought we were third. And then when the angle camera finally got there, it looked like we had a chance of winning. So it's exciting.
It is exciting. Just his second start as well.
Yeah, and it was really... We bought him from an English point to point up at Hexham, and it was... I'm not even sure they should have had racing that day. It was that soft. And all he did was just kept ploughing on. And he obviously had a fair engine to keep going. Nearly ran him in a bumper in the spring, but I never felt I had him in real raceable condition. So backed off him. It's the best thing we probably did. Then went to Chepstow, half expected him to run like a 3-miler in a 2.5 mile race and sort of not slop round, but like look a little bit ungainly and maybe fly late at the line and finish third. But he actually grabbed the bridle, which took us by surprise because he doesn't grab it at home at all. After that, we thought, well, we can win a maiden in theory where we want, so we might as well take aim at a good race with the improvement that we'd seen at the track and then the improvement that we were allowed to have since. So we're just working backwards really rather than working forwards. So yeah, I didn't necessarily think coming here we would beat Conman John, but it's a good performance to do so, I think.
Yeah, very much so. It turned into a bit of a sprint, I think, but he's done really well to cope with it. He's a bit babyish, isn't he? Harry let him hang to the rail, and then that really helped him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, when horses are showing that preference, sometimes you're better off letting them go, and then there comes a point where there's a rail or there's another horse to race against. So it was a safe thing to do, and Harry did. But if you'd have told me in September this horse would have won a sprint over any distance, I'd have said not a chance, because he does look like a 4-miler at home.
He does. He looks like a chaser, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So I'm really impressed with how he's acquitted himself, and yeah, so he's got a fair future at it.
When you say you're working backwards, does it mean you're working backwards from the Albert Bartlett at the festival?
Well, we are now.
Yeah.
But I was only just working backwards from after Chepstow. I just thought we'd work backwards from something like this, and of course, if we didn't win, we could go into a maiden, which is what we'll do with Big Cadillac. And I didn't think coming into this race, I genuinely didn't think there was a split between them. I knew that Carlenrig just had that little bit more toe if the ground was like it was. So that was a consideration for us. But I didn't think there was much between them. And actually on soft ground, I think you'll see a much better performance from the other horse. But we'll have to go to the Albert Bartlett now. I probably won't over-race him. He's won an 80 grand race there. Yeah, he goes through his races nicely. I don't think we need to sort of try and over-educate this horse.
Anything in between, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll find something.
Right.
Yeah, we'll find something. But yeah, whether it's just a standard novice hurdle under a penalty and come here with as full a tank of fuel as possible.
But his future is going to be over a fence.
Yeah, no doubt. It's nice to see 5 nice horses at the back of the last there, showing that the English novice hurdlers have got we've got a good hand, and I think the novice chasers, there's plenty to think when you see that bunch, they'll all be going chasing next year. So, who knows what the order will be next year.
Does the scene feel a bit stronger this time around amongst the younger horses? It feels like it to me.
Absolutely no doubt whatsoever. I said to Harry Durham about 5 weeks ago, can you remember the last ordinary maiden hurdle you ran in? And I think the English novices this year are far, far stronger than probably nearly any point I've had a licence. I think they're very strong. But having said that, Willie's only waking up from his Del Mar slumber, but we don't want to poke the bear, so he can stay asleep as long as he wants. It's going to only get harder. But I do believe that we, as all of the, you don't hear the old, Ireland's got it all their own way as much as you used to in the build up to the season, because we're not into the main festival season yet, are we? But there's been a lot of that over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and there's all of a sudden a little bit less of it, and I think rightly so, because I wouldn't say the English are coming, but you look at the depth that we have now, it's certainly superior to where we've been.
Absolutely. You may be all over the county hurdle, but you haven't used it to win the British Cup turf yet as a stepping stone. You need to sort that out.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Don't know. Fair play. Just don't even know what to say, really.
There's plenty of time in your career. These things can happen. Reflecting on Ho Jelly Smoke, I was saying to Harry, the race didn't quite pan out for him.
No, it's not. And when you're in your grade, which he is, and you're competitive, which he is, you do then need the third slice, which is things to go the way that you need them to go. And today they didn't go so quick. I do feel like he doesn't have the hill as a nemesis here, but he doesn't quite see it out as strong as some.
Yeah.
So, I've had a good chat with the owners. They're sporting people. We've had 3 good goes here. We're happy that we've run 3 good races, but we just feel like it's time to step away now. We'll go for the old Racing Post chase. Sorry to the sponsor, whoever you are this year, because it changes a lot. Whoever's sponsoring this year, I think might even be Coral or Ladbrokes, but I'll get in trouble with Simon Clare for that, won't I? It's one of those anyway, but it's worth a lot of money, and we'll be trying to win it. And then I should imagine he'll go for the Topham. So we're going to have some good dances this year with him. Hopefully one lands, and if it doesn't, then we'll have a go next year. He's a Black Sam Bellamy, and he's only 7 years old. I think he's entitled to improve.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.